John,
Yeah.
just to start us off for this, thanks again for your time with Keep Cardiff Live. I'm sure you got a big fan base actually in South Wales. I'm sure you've been here loads of times over the years, actually.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we first started to come to Wales when we had to go across the ferry. Sometimes,
From Ilfracombe or
before the
somewhere?
bridge was built, all that stuff,
Oh, from Bristol, from the other side of Bristol across, was it?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
used to
Bob
get the
Dylan did that
ferry.
once. Yeah. Wow.
Before the M1 was built, we've been around that long. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
That, the, the,
so South Wales and Wales, the whole thing. I mean, we've loved. I absolutely adore Wales. Actually, the first girl I ever fell in love with, like really in love with, was from the Mumbles.
oh, right.
Yeah, I can still smell her skin. I can still taste the kisses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a lovely place actually, the Mumbles as well, isn't it? A really pretty place.
Oh, gorgeous. I was just hitchhiking around,
Hmm.
at the time and having a great time. Yeah, I mean, we had so much fun in Wales playing gigs. Peter Hope Evans, the original partner of mine in
Hmm.
Medicine Head,
Hmm.
he's from Bridgend.
Yes.
So, we were there a lot, and I mean, I wrote a song called Rising Sun, looking out at the ocean or the sea, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
We used to hitchhike wherever we were. We kind of decide to go to the coast and just get out and hitchhike. So we hitchhiked through the night many times to arrive at the coast when the sun came up, as the sun was rising.
Hmm.
So I wrote a song called Rising Sun in those kind of circumstances. It's
Somewhere in Wales.
South Wales,
Yeah.
In the Bridgend area. That's sort of Cowbridge, I think it was.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a nice coast around there as well. It's not quite the Mumbles, but it's nice. Firstly, John, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Warriors of Love, about the new album, sort of how it's being received and how things are going with it, and the general kind of process of putting it together. I imagine it was quite a tricky thing to do at the moment. I don't know.
Well, I think we've all been through a very odd time, haven't we? With COVID, etc. It's been very isolating sometimes, and it's brought a lot of people together as well. And for me, it gave me the opportunity, in a way, to just focus on completing that album. And I'm very thankful, in a sort of strange way that came along. Kind of made, because of my isolation, it made me just knuckle down and get that album finished. And basically, I mean, the opening lines, the first song, Warriors of Love, it's all about, I believe in freedom, I believe in truth, I believe in the power of love, and I believe in you. And then I go on to say, we can't stand by and watch these tears as the whole world cries. Mm-hmm. I'm a warrior of love. So, let's help each other, let's show each other some love. Yeah. And while we're in those circumstances, let's really, truly do it. And then, of course, now, as we're trying to break out, let's just continue that work, and just like we used to do, the old hippies that we are,
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. So was it like in a way kind of quite a nice creative distraction, I suppose, was it?
Well, I write, I'm writing a lot of the time. And so it kind of was. It was interesting. I put together this little label called Living Room Records because I was recording in my living room, and away we went. It was very literal, cliche, corny maybe, but who cares? It's all about wherever you are is your living room. You live there. You can be in space and it's still the place where you live. And I just wanted to convey that in a humorous way. So good times.
And I'm just trying to work it out. How many albums have you released in any kind of shape or form over the years? Is it 20 odd, probably?
I've never counted. I don't know.
A long list.
I can't help you there. No, I remember I wrote that song called "One on One Is a One."
Yeah.
So how can I count? I mean,
yeah, fair enough. fair enough. Good answer. But when was that? Was that 73 or something like that? Was it? Was
yeah, ish. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I'll come on to that a bit later on. What about when you're writing? Because you say you write, you write all the time. Do you have any sort of tips for songwriters? How do you sort of, how do you make these songs happen? Is it some sort of method you use, maybe?
Oh, well, there are several different things. One is make yourself available at all times. Don't think, oh, I'll write that down later, or I'll record that, little snippet later. We've all got mobile phones. You can just sort of talk, put it in record something. So make yourself available. Not everything you do is good, but it might lead to something else. And that's the important thing. I consider myself to be a kind of receiver transmitter. So I receive ideas, and then I have to transmit them, in a song form or whatever it is. And I can't remember who said, it's like 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. You got to be prepared for that. It's like when a lot of people give up playing guitar because they've hurt their fingers. Well, that's the way it is,
Yeah.
If you can't take the pain, there is no gain. I mean, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
I have a story, if you want it, about when we first started Medicine Head. I played piano and Peter harmonica, but everywhere we went, the pianos were smashed up. So we realized that, we've got to change the format, and because, they're either out of tune or broken or whatever, the pianos. So I got a guitar, and I had to learn to play guitar, and I had to sort of transfer the piano-ness of the songs into guitar, all in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So by the time we got to this first gig, my fingers were killing me. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
They were a mess. And so I did do that gig, obviously, and I just had blood everywhere. I literally was, that's the way it was.
Wow.
Because you have to build those calluses. So, don't give up, and keep on going. And, I'm kind of, it's a kind of strange story, but it's a real good story.
Yeah.
It's positive,
I tried to do it the other way around, not very successfully. I tried to transfer guitar to piano, just working on the triads, to try and work out the chords.
Oh, I don't know anything about music. Just do it all.
Well, I just there's generally kind of three main notes in chords and whatever. I just try to take that from the guitar and put it on the piano.
Sure. I find myself doing that too. Yeah. In fact, a lot of people say, what kind of things do you do with a guitar or piano? I mean, I've never really been one for technicality, just being technically adept, but obviously you have to have some. But for me, if I can play an A minor, just play an A minor on the guitar, I just sit there and I'm in wonder, I'm in wonderland. It's like, how the hell did that happen? It's just amazing. So, I mean, that's my practicing. If I ever practice, it's just to hear something that turns me on. So an A minor or an E minor, whatever it may be, it's just thank you.
Talking of, I suppose, to some extent, minors, to some extent, I mean, it's quite a big kind of blues kind of influence running through what you're writing at the moment, or appears to be on the new album. And you quite diverse, aren't you, in the styles that you sort of occupy? You don't stick with one style. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, everything that I do is based on the blues. It all comes through the blues. But I don't see why you should be pigeonholed or whatever into one type of thing. I mean, Hope Evans and I, when we first started Medicine Head, we would play like a completely raw, broken-hearted, broken everything blues, raw and rough as can be and loud as can be, and then switch to a very gentle song, love song, or a very gentle, some kind of spiritual song, whatever. So we've never kind of thought, oh, that doesn't seem like us. Just do whatever you feel is right.
Because some of the stuff you did in those days, it struck me as quite sort of, towards kind of reggae vibe, kind of dubby kind of territory
I
too.
love reggae. I love, and the early ska, the early island records, the Trojan records. I just love all those early stuff. So there's no reason to not have all kinds of influences.
No, not at all. I think it's a really
One and One is One was written. I wrote it as a kind of New Orleans style, rolling, sort of that's domino-y kind of thing. That's where I was going. And if you listen to it, that's the kind of basic roll of it. So
how did it become the song it was? And was that a producer's influence, or just a way it turned out?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And also, I never thought of it as being like I wasn't writing songs to make hit records. We were just writing songs. And Tony Ashton obviously saw something in that song that he felt was quite sort of approachable by a lot of people, and he got that right, I think.
Yeah. Well, it was a massive hit, wasn't it? I mean, it was a top 5 hit, wasn't it, in the time?
Yeah, and in this country, and then #1 in various others like Germany and stuff. But I don't know whether it was good for us or bad for us. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people said we'd sold out, which was an old phrase for, just becoming a commercial commodity. And
that's crazy, isn't it, John? Don't you think that's a really crazy one? Most people want to have, one of their songs to be heard, and then when they're hit, you sold out.
Yeah, I try not to be judgmental, on things, because if somebody wants to kind of own you in a way, which is what people do want, and they find their special band, and they want they want you to stay the same forever. I can't criticize it, because that's how they feel. But at the same time, we have to, well, we don't have to do anything, but we do. I find myself naturally changing, moving on. The only constant thing in life is change, and that's how it works for me. But people did say we'd sold out. My car was smashed up.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah, they're funny. I mean, whatever difference that makes. But people do get very emotional, and that's not a bad thing. Get emotional, get involved.
You're getting emotional and smashing up a car is two different things, arguably.
Well, I think in the heat of the moment, people do very odd things, don't they?
I think you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand why people. I like the emotion of it, like you say. On the last, most recent album, I think you worked with some guest musicians. Did you, even though you were recording at home? Is that right?
Yeah. Well, the way it worked was that we transferred files. So Morgan Fisher and I are big old friends from way back.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about him, actually. Tell me about Morgan Fisher, because I've read the book, which I loved. Yeah. And I've interviewed him, but from your perspective as a friend and fellow musician.
Okay, well, I think I met Morgan when he was in Mott the Hoople, and we'd bump into each other on the road, just playing gigs, various colleges, clubs, universities, whatever, and became quite friendly with the Mott the Hoople guys, and Morgan and I became bigger friends, And when Peter Hope Evans left Medicine Head for the first time, or maybe the second time, I can't remember, Morgan was over at my place having dinner, and the phone kept ringing, and it was for him. And so eventually he said, "Oh, what about this? The guys in the band over in Watts, Buffin, the drummer, and we're thinking, would you be interested in getting into a rehearsal room with us?" And I said, well, yeah, why not? So I went in there with them, and we eventually formed this stupidly named band called British Lions, which is a great rugby team, you know.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing band, actually. The power of that band was beyond belief. And that's what it became, you know. And Morgan and I, you know, we just maintained our friendship. He lives in Tokyo now, has been there for, I don't know, well over 30 years, maybe 40 years. And he loves it there. So during that period of time when you know, we've been exchanging audio files, you know, like there's a song on that album called Forgive and Forget. And Morgan sent me the piano intro. And then he said, I've got a title, Forgive and Forget, you know, and it really, I thought that's fantastic. You know, it really is a lot of what life's all about, you know, please forgive, forget it, start over. So he sent that to me and I thought, wow, you know, I'm going to do something with this. And that song came out of it, you know, so it's good. So even though I was working in my living room, Morgan was working in his living room or his studio in Tokyo. So, you know, that was a great way to communicate and great way to put things together.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite an exciting.
I think it sounds quite fresh, you know, and live, you know, it doesn't sound like as if we're so many thousand miles away from each other. You know, it's
Did you produce it, John, yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, you put the whole thing. So you're getting these files from all over the place, and kind of you put the whole thing together. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, the way I work generally is that you know, Morgan sent me that introduction, for example, and then I wrote, you know, put guitars down and drums and, you know, and whatever, got a song together with the vocals and backing vocals and all that sort of stuff. And Morgan then augmented his keyboards, you know, what he'd done, and away we go.
When one and one is one, when it was a hit, I mean, just to say, I work in a university, so I'm surrounded by people in 18, 19, 20-year-olds, you know. I mean, they don't even know what happened last week, never mind, you know, in great years of music sort of thing. In terms of record sales, approximately, John, what do you reckon record sales for one and one is one?
Over 1 million.
Yeah.
I mean, worldwide, not just in the UK. We must have approached 300,000 at least in the UK, and then same in Germany and more, maybe. Actually, probably more in Germany, and through Europe. You know, it's got to add up to quite a lot of records. Yeah.
So I mean, and I don't mean in like, you know, when, you know, reminiscing sort of thing with the old days, great, but the old days were kind of great, really. How has the music scene, do you think, how do you think it's sort of changed over the years? We moved more towards streaming, etc., and, you know, the iTunes charts and record sales have kind of, you know, totally flattened, haven't they, really?
Well, the problem really that bands have faced over the pandemic time is that's when they sell records, you know, or CDs, or when they're on tour. You know, it's not so much the way it used to be through shops or whatever, although bless them, shops are trying hard. Record shops, you know, vinyl sellers, etc. The problem with streaming is you have to get about 8 billion streams to earn 2 shillings, you know, 2 pence or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's very frugal and very anti-musicians in many ways. On the other hand, there is work coming along to try to change that, and, you know, young bands coming through, you know, they're going to have such a difficult time trying to support themselves, you know, and fund recordings. So, you know, if you want it for free, you'll end up getting nothing.
Correct.
Because nobody can do it, you know, except for, you know, like I don't know how to say this really, but, you know, if you have someone who has a talent, then you really please support that person, you know, let them grow, and you'll be surprised what they can do. And but if you just want everything for free, you're going to have an issue, you know.
Yep. Totally agree.
Plumbers and electricians don't work for free. You know, your house could be flooded and without lights, you know.
Yeah.
If you don't pay.
Yeah, I mean, you can't keep on doing something for nothing forever, can you? It's mathematically impossible.
No, it's unsustainable, and that's the sad thing for young artists these days, in my opinion. You know, well, there's been two really sad things. One is that they've been taught to almost wait for the limo to arrive, you know, through various competitions and, you know, those whatever they're called. I can't even. It sort of hurts my heart to think about what they are.
Yeah.
You know, really good singers and young kids singing the same old crap being churned out, you know, because, you know, older people want to hear that and control them and sign them up. And, you know, that's not for young people. Young people move mountains. You know, that's their job. Their job is to chop it down with the side of their hand, you know, and get moving on and creating for themselves. Not for, you know, just to get the limo waiting outside. No. So we need, in my opinion, and since you asked me, my thoughts are support young musicians, you know, just support them, go see them at local, now that we can, you know, go see them at local pubs and clubs and give them a helping hand and allow them to create. And to do that, you know, you've got to earn something and you've got to be able to buy equipment, you know.
Yep.
So, you know, help them out.
For the uninitiated, I'm saying young people, if I stopped you in the street and said, what was this thing called Medicine Head then? What, you know, how would you sort of outline what Medicine Head were about?
Well, I think it was about a journey, the kind of thing I'm just talking about now. You know, we were a journey. We didn't know what we were going to do. We were at school. First thing I noticed about Peter Hope Evans was he had a harmonica sticking up out of his pocket, you know, and I had one as well. Okay. So, you know, that was an immediate connection, and we could play harmonicas, you know, because you didn't need a truck to carry a harmonica around. You know, you didn't need the case behind you with a guitar in it. Yeah. You know, you could just play harmonicas, and that's how we started, really. And the next part of that journey was we'd listen to blues music, basic blues songs, you know, blues albums, blues music, all day long, as much as possible, and just play along if we got the right key, you know, because we only had one key. Oh yeah. Because it costs money, you know, to buy a harmonica. Believe it or not. I guess. So, you know, I think it was a C. Yeah. Yeah. You know, our thing was to just absorb whatever we could. And we realized, you know, that we wanted to perhaps kind of maybe sort of, you know, move this thing forwards. But it was never like, I didn't have I just wrote songs, and Peter wrote, you know, we weren't looking for hit records. We were just looking for a creative output, and that's what we got. So, you know, when we first started, we'd just go and knock on doors and say, can we play? You know, places that had like pubs that had club rooms or whatever. Or we'd arrive before anybody else, get our little bits of gear in there and just say, can we play? Yeah. And generally we were, you know, people said, yeah, you know, there were a few, because back in the day, folk clubs didn't want electric guitars. You know, it was taboo, you know, to have an electric guitar. Yeah. And I only had an electric guitar and the old AC30, you know, so it's like, that was that. So some places said, no, you can't bring electric guitars in here. You just can't do it, which is very sad, because they just cut off an avenue, you know, a bit like when they booed Dylan off
Dylan,
stage.
yeah. When you were talking earlier, saying about getting the ferry across, I got a photo somewhere of Dylan making the same journey, sitting by the kind of cafe on the Bristol side of the water.
Yeah. I wish we still did that, to be honest.
Yeah, nice, really. I suppose. Yeah, nice. But well, there's a bridge, a couple of bridges now, aren't there? So arguably is easier. When getting signed, with Medicine Head, how did that sort of come about for you?
Well, we used our kind of gate crashing philosophy. We just needed to play at places. And, like I said, people don't wait for the limo to arrive. Get out there and smash some doors down.
Yeah.
And we knew that if we could possibly get in touch with John Peel, it may help. We may sort of further our cause, whatever that was. By this time, we really had something going on, and again, we applied the thing. There was a club in Wolverhampton called the Lafayette Club, and I think they had Jethro Tull playing there this night, and John Peel was the DJ, introducing everything and all that stuff. And we just had to get to see him, and it was local to where we lived. So we arrived there before anybody else, convinced this security guy that we were Jethro Tull, got in there and put our equipment out and just waited, because we knew the inevitable would happen. And Jethro Tull arrived, and the security guys came on, stage guys, and said, "You're not Jethro Tull." I said, "You're right, but can we play?" And I think they got the manager and some other people, and we convinced them to let us play for like 10 minutes or something. And I think John Peel saw about, 5 minutes of it, and he really liked it. So he said, "Just send me a tape," So it was quite incredible, because a tape hadn't come into our heads, what do you need a tape for,
Yeah.
But he wanted a tape. So we were able to play, that part of it was achieved. And this is what you got to do. You don't wait for anybody else to come and find you. Go out and find it, just go and do things. And, we had no clue what to do as far as recording anything.
How did you record it, by the way?
Well, we borrowed a Grundig tape recorder, I think it was.
Right. Yeah.
Something like that. It was like a real piece of, what. And we recorded it in the kitchen. We just set the gear up we rented this little farm cottage. So we had the equipment set up all the time, just making as much noise as we wanted right out in the country. And we recorded, 2 or 3 songs, and sent it off down to John Peel. And John Peel, being the man that he was, he played it to a few people. And, it's like, this is magical, really. He played it to John Lennon.
Yeah, wow.
And he played it to Pete Townsend.
Yeah.
And these people were like gods to us kids from the Midlands who, we were just shocked when we got a letter from Peel, I think it was, because we had no phones or anything like that.
No.
We didn't have a landline, let alone a mobile phone.
Wow.
And we got a letter saying that he really liked it. And then we got a telegram saying, "Come to London." So, maybe it was like, phone this number. So we had to walk into the village and put pennies in the black box.
Old-fashioned call box, yeah.
The A-B thing, press A for the call, I think, and B to get your money back. So we did that, and we went down to London, and it was just like, wow, what the hell's going on? And we arrived, and Peel invited us into his place, and it was a Muse place near Regent's Park Muse, actually. And we walked in, and you kind of walk upstairs to the living room area, and there's John's girlfriend, Sheila. There's Mark Bolan sitting cross-legged on the floor. Next to him is his wife, June. And she's literally, this is no joke, she's knitting or crocheting one of Mark's Moons and Stars tank tops,
Yeah.
And I mean, I was speechless, and so was Peter. We just kind of think, well, where are we? This is beyond belief. I didn't know what to say. It was just, I was dumbstruck like a Midland schoolboy. It's just like, really incredible. And John said, well, look, and he told me the story that John Lennon had insisted that he sign us to his new label called Dandelion Records, like one of the very first indie labels, which is great for our thought, our mentality, our process. And he insisted that the tape, the kitchen tapes, the notorious, infamous kitchen tapes now, was what he would use to release, to the first release of Medicine Head.
Wow.
So that was it, and I mean, I couldn't speak. I didn't know what to say. I was just completely dumbstruck. If John Lennon had been there, I would have probably passed out or something, I mean.
Did you get to meet him later on at all?
No.
No, never got to meet him. No. It's fantastic. I mean, the two of the kind of seminal figures in the history of music, and in our country, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, Pete, we got to know Pete quite well, and Peter Hope Evans knows. He's played in various forms of Townsend recordings, and been on tour with him as well. They share a kind of mutual spiritual situation with a guy named Mayor Barber. And you've heard Townsend's Barbara O'Reilly. I'm sure Barber, B-A-B-A.
All right. Okay.
Is reference to Mayor Barber, who was his guru kind of character.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they share that, and they've worked a lot together. And Pete Townsend was extremely he was so thoughtful, helpful to us. I mean, he let us record in his studio, for free. He's kind of a very generous guy.
How do you think Medicine Head would have, a totally figurative question, how do you think Medicine Head would have done these days if you look at the way the music scene is now, and trying to break through as a young band? Do you think would it have been much more difficult, do you think, for a start?
Well, I think first of all, answering the question from the beginning, you have to be convinced to yourself that you're convinced that this is what you're going to do. It's not because you like the idea of all the girls, or a fast car or anything like that. It's nothing to do with that. Where Peter and I come from, and a lot of the bands from any time really, if they have the same attitude, it doesn't matter how old you are, whatever. I think we would have had the same attitude.
Yeah.
I think we would have gone breaking doors down. We would have put ourselves out there. And we had to learn this lesson. I learned it very early from a friend who went to school with us named Andrew Lilly, who I wish we would have had as our manager, but he was managing director of some company that, you know, at the age of 20, he was like out there flying, you know. And he was the one who got us going first of all. He said, what are you doing? You know, so we write songs. And are you playing anywhere? Oh, no, not yet. Why? I haven't got a car. Well, why haven't you got a car? And next week we got a car, you know. Yeah. Andrew was so motivating. And that's really, you know, what it's all about. So young people today, what we would have done today, pretty much the same.
Okay.
And we would have been very different from anything else that's happening today, again, you know, because we're not kind of trying to be, or never were trying to be anything, you know, of an ilk. You know, we were just doing what we did.
And the duo thing, and the kind of, you know, the single electric guitar and the harmonicas, but that many other people were doing it at all, were they?
It was necessity, really, Steve.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know any musicians. We had no idea how to play, really. We just made it up as we went along.
Yeah.
And you know, we were very lucky. I mean, we did have a massive amount of luck. We did a lot of work putting ourselves out and about, but we did have a lot of luck and good fortune, you know. But neither of us, I call myself a magician rather than a musician, because I make people think I'm a musician, but I'm really a magician. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm more interested in the feeling of something rather than, you know, the perfect sort of 3 notes to get, you know, played in exactly the right place.
Yeah.
You know, according to some schedule, but mine comes straight from the heart. So that's the way I've always thought. And I know that Peter Hope Evans is unrivaled, you know, in terms of his harmonica playing is incredible. He's not technical, but he can move mountains. You know, he can melt stone with the way that he plays. It's just wonderful to experience.
Is he still? Are you still in touch with him at all?
Rarely. Yeah, rarely. Yeah, Pete left a couple of times from Medicine Head, and you know, he didn't really enjoy hit records.
Okay.
You know, and I don't think either of us did in many ways, because as I said, you know, it turned some people into, you know, people who said we'd sold out and all that kind of thing. We didn't try to do that. It just happened, and you know, we lost a lot of people along the way, but we gained a lot more. Yeah, you know.
I mean, when you were talking earlier, I love that story. I'm sure you've told that story zillions of times, but I love that story. And if you hadn't have gone to that, you know, that gig in Wolverhampton or that night, you know, who knows, isn't it?
I know. I mean, what would have happened? I really don't know. I mean, John Peel, if we'd not met John, Blue Horizon Records, for example, they turned us down, Mike Vernon. And I saw Mike not so long ago, actually, and I hadn't seen him for decades. You know, I knew his brother, Richard. He lived around the corner from me. But we kind of bumped into each other at it was the 50th anniversary of the Marquee Club, actually. And Mike was there, and we sort of bumped into each other, and I said, "How you doing, Mike?" He said, "Yeah, I should have signed you."
Huh. Yeah, a bit late now, isn't it?